medical industry is the one that is growing the most, because it's not just those really expensive degrees to an MD that you need. It's people who are trained to administer x-rays and draw blood, and those are the types of jobs that we're going to see a higher and higher demand for as soon as we pass health insurance reform.
Right. And as the boomer population ages and needs more care and services. But you might also see, and correct me if I'm wrong here, might you also see people who otherwise would not be retire because now they don't need the job to hold on to health insurance, and perhaps it become more of an employee-friendly market rather than an employer-friendly market? Is that correct?
I think
it's controversial.
To get energy, yes. But I think that if we really take a long-term approach, I mean, you hear everybody saying, well, think about the next generation and the next generation. Well, thinking about future generations, it's really most efficient and expedient for us to be investing in these clean energy sources.
Right. And then what would you say to critiques of the stimulus that it hasn't accomplished anything, or on the other side, say Paul Krugman, that it wasn't enough and another one is needed? How do we balance that?
Well, I think it's completely ridiculous to say that the stimulus hasn't accomplished anything. In the last quarter of 2009, the economy expanded by 6.7%, whereas a year ago it was shrinking by 5%. So we have to really look and compare and see what kind of different situation we're in today compared to a year ago. So what was the second part of your question?
Oh, no, the expanded stimulus. Many Keynesian economists would say that as a percentage of the GDP, the stimulus wasn't close to enough, and that the jobs bill are not close to enough. What are the prospects for, say, a second stimulus, and does the administration believe it's necessary? Well,
I think that the president definitely, $5 billion is a lot of money to put into the economy, even considering the situation that we're in. But he definitely wants to take a look at where that money is being used most effectively. So the stimulus money has been pledged for a lot of different projects, a number of which are already underway, but some of which haven't begun yet. So he's taking the time to see how the money works and where it's being used most effectively, which sectors, which parts of the country, and he's going to use that information to figure out where additional money should go.
Tom, you're looking for work right now. How many people who are still employed right now and have been employed and have not had employment interruptions took a look at what it was like to try to find employment, say 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and don't understand the difficulties that the unemployed are currently facing in the current economy. Could you sort of explain what's different about looking for a job now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago as you've changed careers?
Well, first of all, the internet and email wasn't around then.
Okay.
But with that, when there's job openings, there must be thousands of people that are going for the same position. And whether they even look at your resume is hope, actually.
On average, 6 person to one job right now, 6 people to one job.
And at least from a psychological standpoint, 30 years ago when you applied for something, they would always send you a letter. But nowadays, of course, that'll never happen. But the biggest change has been the email for sure.
Okay, and has that been advantageous to the job seeker or disadvantageous?
But not for me. It's definitely networking. Okay. And from what I heard today, I think volunteering in a situation somewhere would be helpful as well.
What would you recommend to somebody who's looking for work like yourself from your experiences?
Definitely go to the unemployment office in Ventura and see me. They have a great meeting there. People that get together support you with a resume, help you with your resume, help you with an interview. The internet is interesting to find positions, but it hasn't been helpful for me. So again, networking is the important part.
Okay. And Gabrielle, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, you're sort of the expert on on this issue in terms of help. People will obviously need help with their resumes. People need help with other documentation. Where can they go to get help on with these things?
Well, there is a group at unemployment that's an excellent group. In fact, they were written up in the Wall Street Journal, which you're involved in. You really need support. You need to get with other people in the same situation. You need that support. You need help interviewing, mock interviews, help with the resume, clothing for interviewing, and up-to-date internet techniques, and general information about what areas to look for work. And I know they also have a speaker that comes in, but it's very hard, and so you really need a lot of support to be in a group or several groups, because it's a very hard thing.
Once someone secures an interview for a job, what do you recommend for interview strategies at this time?
A mock interview, practice interviewing. Like we would do an interview, you would ask me questions, or I would, and you're to be positive and tell about yourself, but try to match what they're looking for by your experience.
Right.
You want your resume to go as close to possible, or your interview to be as close as possible as a match to what they're looking for, and be a problem solver for them. What are they looking for? What do they need? Can you be that person?
I agree. I think you have to be positive, and probably more importantly, you have to interview them just as well as they're interviewing you.
Right.
Right. And in terms of follow-up, many people don't understand. Do you?
Oh, very, very important.
Okay.
Follow up. Send a thank you card. Nice business thank you card. Follow up, because that lets them know you're really interested, and that if you show that continuity and that commitment, you're also going to be somebody who wants to be there every day, who's really interested and committed.
And then many people, of course, are desperate for jobs, and it's a very employer-friendly market right now. How do you balance out the fact that that the job seeker needs to get this job with respecting oneself in the salary negotiation process? How do you approach salary negotiation?
Well, you say you're open in terms of salary negotiation. Maybe you could do a little research ahead of time to know what the range is going to be, so that you're in the middle there. It's good to help self-esteem and confidence in terms of the salary negotiations. However, you really want to get your foot in the door. You don't want the highest. You really want to get your foot in the door and get a job. So you want to really work with them.
Right. Okay, so Emily, what do you see on the horizon as we approach the elections, which obviously healthcare is for starters, and then the jobs bill, but then you have about 6 months until the elections. What do you see the administration focusing on immediately after we get through these things?
That's a great question, and there's so many pressing issues. I know that immigration is important to so many people across the country, so I think we're going to be seeing some movement on immigration. Financial regulatory reform is also going to be a huge issue. A little bit has been done in terms of the credit card protection and getting money back from the banks, but I think we're going to see a lot more movement on financial regulatory reform, and I think we're going to continue to try to get a climate bill passed through both houses of Congress. I know that there was one already passed through the House, and the Senate is working on one. So it's really hard, and I think a lot of people expected so much from President Obama, and I think he really has delivered in so many ways. But we also have to remember that he's only been in office for 1 year, and I'm hoping he's going to be in office for 7 more. So there is time to approach all of these different issues, and it really is right now. Every day, he and his administration are working on creating jobs for American people. The American people. That is the administration's #1 priority, is to create jobs. And I know that all of the future legislation that they're going to be looking at is going to be looked at through the lens of job creation. So it's not just how do we fix the broken immigration system, it's how do we create jobs for people in the United States while addressing the immigration crisis.
Well, here in California, obviously, especially in Southern California, the moment you talk about employment and you talk about national policy, immigration comes up, and you get this refrain of if these people weren't here, we would have these jobs or whatever. How can you explain how a more comprehensive immigration policy might actually benefit working Americans, including Caucasian, middle-aged working Americans who seem to have resentment over these issues.
I mean,